right now I'm at the pony club watching my girls doing laps.
And mate, look, yeah, big amen to that, mate. I'm totally on board with it. So you've got this excellent production company called Millstream Productions, and your motto is kind of like driven by story. But I know that story is driven by character, and not just as in the person, but as in character in the sense of who you are. So if I can impose on you to tell us whom you are, give us your backstory.
Well, I guess in a nutshell, I grew up, I wasn't a film kid, I grew up riding BMX, surfing, like doing whatever it was to get out of the house. And, that was life for me. But I mean, I guess growing up, I had pretty significant dyslexia as a kid. So I developed really well verbally, not so well, from a reading, writing perspective, but like it was always really important to me to try and overcome that as well. So, when I was out and about, that vocal ability, I guess, that you develop as a kid, like that went with me. But then over time, being able to write well, which is so important to any type of filmmaking, and then also, being able to articulate what it is that you're trying to achieve. So there's a whole lot of different strings that you develop to your bow. And I just worked away at all of that. And, I think when I finished school, I was going to, I think back, I was going to be a teacher. I was going to teach social science and English, which was a pretty crazy thing for a dyslexic to want to do, but it's trying to make my dad proud and my mum proud, you know how it is. And then one of my mates was studying film, and I remember going in and sitting in this edit suite, and it was just an A-roll edit suite with an MX10 vision switcher and edit controller, and oh man, that was it. The next day I went and saw the coordinator of film at QUT, and I transferred over in a heartbeat. And that's kind of been where that was one of the starting points. And then not long after that, my job at the time, I was the ding fixer at Cura Surf. And so for me, it was also kind of, I just loved watching those old Jack McCoy films, Green Iguana, Bunyip Dreaming, such epic films. And so I met John Gordo the Great, who was a Channel 7 cameraman at the time, but working for Jack McCoy. And I just became like, I became his assistant, I guess you could say. And we'd zip off here, there, and everywhere on the Goldie, filming epic surf. And then met Jack McCoy, and, I think used to send him tapes of things I'd recorded at the Billabong Pro or whatever it might have been. And that was where I cut my teeth. And then in uni, started doing tons of interviews, and, instead of doing a written assignment, I'd make a documentary, and I remember, like at a really young age, like making a film, which was called A Slice, I don't know, what was it? A Slice of Australian Surf History. And I interviewed like Peter Troy, who was this legendary traveling Australian surfer, and Bob McTavish, who was like, the inventor of the short surfboard. And I was like, wow, that's where I cut my teeth. And the end of Bob McTavish's interview, I remember he said to me, I'll never forget it, but those questions you asked me and the way that you got me to articulate my story, he goes, that was the best interview I think I've ever done. I was like, wow. For me, that was huge. And, and I'll never forget that. I've never seen Bob just thank him for those kind words, but he's very well esteemed in the Australian surfing community. After that, taught film for a while, but was always looking for an opportunity to get into doing bigger work. And then I segued into feature films. So that was, that was probably, I don't know, quite a few years ago now, but and then it all kind of kept on progressing from there, I guess.
Mate, progression doesn't happen by itself. And if I can make the observation, it's obviously your skill and talent is what's driving this. But it's kind of strange that what I'm picking up here, and I need you to correct me if it's incorrect, is that in some ways your dyslexia has helped your ability to empathize, tell stories, articulate, and even write. which is kind of counter.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Like, did I interpret that correctly?
It's I mean, I'm no well, I mean, I've got dyslexia, but I'm not an expert on it. But I do think that it enables you to develop multiple intelligences, you know, and yeah, absolutely. I think that I've always felt things with my heart, and you know, it's really easy to be able to develop empathy for someone or someone's story when when you get a sense that that's where you need to go with an interview, or I mean, but also just deep listening, you know, at a young age, found everyone, not just, you know, everyone's got a great story. No if, buts, or maybes. And you just have to be patient and ask the right questions, not going where the person doesn't want to go. But if they, you know, if they give you enough lead, you know, I've gone to some of the most fascinating places in interviews, and not just doing, corporate work or whatever. I've worked in some of the most remote communities in Australia, and done First Nations, incredible interviews in different languages like Anadiliakwa, Yulmata, Kupapoingo, like you name it. Those three, though, I've done a lot of work in, and it always surprised me. Like, even I could only understand, like, just a neophyte understanding of those languages. But even so, like, people are still, people read your heart, I think, and they get a sense for, the kind of person you are, and that you're not wanting to stitch them up. And that's the key thing for us is, we'll never stitch somebody up if they're, we'll never stitch anyone up, period. It's just not in our, the way that we work. And I've got to say that too. Like, I work with a team, not a team of one. I've worked with this amazing other North Queensland-based filmmaker, Alan Glore, who, has been down in Sydney for quite a number of years, but just recently moved back up here. And then we have a bunch of great other filmmakers that, as required, we, give them a buzz and get them to jump into production, or to do an element of post that we're, that's a bit of a stretch for us. So we've done everything from animating, a total 3D animation of a total artificial heart, to really funny little animations that, we've done for whoever the client might be. We've done, all sorts of different productions over the years. And I guess, to come back to your question, I think because as a kid, being dyslexic, everything was so bloody hard, and not pulling any punches there. It was really difficult. I just got a sense that nothing was impossible. You just give anything a shot. And if you can build the right team around you, and that's one thing that I think, I've been blessed having the ability to get a good sense for people I can work with, and then doing my best to be able to get the best out of those people, to be able to produce something that is, one, on schedule, two, within budget, three, makes the client happy, if that's what if that's who it is that I'm making it for, and then four, that I'm, that pays the bills, but also that I'm, that I'm happy with as well. Because the last thing in the world you want to be doing is soulless work. You want to do work about things you actually care about. That's where the rubber really hits the road, I guess. Yeah, man.
And it's incredible that you've been able to take this passion that you kind of fell into, and again, very counterintuitively, if I may make the observation, and make a successful living out of it, because not many people get it, are able to do that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I don't think I'd ever really realized that until fairly recently. Actually, I don't know if you remember last year, Neil Murray from the Warumpi Band, who I'm a massive Warumpi Band fan, and he was playing in Cairns, and I reached out to him quite a few months before he got up here. But we had a chat one day, and it was really interesting. He said to me, he said, "So Matt, like, what do you do in the real world, other than, what do you do for a living?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm a filmmaker. This is it." And he was like, "Hang on a minute, you got a wife who you support, and you've got 3 kids, and you make a living as a filmmaker, and you can," and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty crazy, huh? And then I sort of threw in, and I paid off a house, again, it's just about building a really good team and having people that have got your back, but at the same time you having their back, and and it's great, like it's not always easy. Sometimes I look at our slate and it's like, oh man, like there's so much to do, and then other times it's like you get to the swinging door of the saloon, it's just like where'd all the gigs go, but they come back, and it's just being able to have faith that everything's going to be all right and to back yourself. And when I first started, I was in camera department. I used to watch, I was my role was like video assist, but you'd watch these really talented, like guys that were wanting to progress, and there literally had to be a point where you'd bookend and you'd say, I'm never taking another job as a loader, because if I do, never be anything but loader. And same with focus pullers wanting to step up to be an operator. And then at the same time, same as operators wanting to step up and be a DP. I mean, there had to be a point where you made a clean cut. But I was fairly fortunate. I have from another life, have a teaching degree, and for a while I jumped back into teaching. But I think the last time I stepped into a classroom was give or take 12 years ago, and I think I can remember the very day. And yeah, it's just been amazing, like not having to do anything other than this, like for all that time. Kind of blows my mind.
Well, I think part of the appeal is this authenticity, and it comes from all those things you were discussing before. Is you're agendaless, if I can make that observation, because a lot of the problems with the mainstream media and look, and even some parts of the non-mainstream media too, is the fact that people are agenda based. They want a narrative validated, or they want something else to happen, rather than just being driven by the story, to allow people to tell their own story in their own way. You know what I mean? And if you create a space where people understand that you're genuinely listening and you're genuinely empathetic, there's no judgment. It's just like, well, tell me the story. People will open up. It's that's a skill, Matt. Like, not everyone's got that. Look, let me tell you that for no charge. Clearly, you're one of those people that has, but you've got the technical skills to back it as well.
But boy, oh boy, I sometimes watch what my editor does with material that what we've gathered, and it just blows my mind, because in the interview, like like you, as I said, you're deeply listening, but you're also wanting to move back towards a central theme that you're needing to capture to make the interview pay. If you ask questions that get to a person's heart, that gets them to nail their colors to the mast, if you like, and share with an audience what's what's important to them, and that's going to resonate with any audience, if you've got people that are passionate about what they do. Absolutely.
And you've had opportunities to move into the more, I suppose, corporate production side of things.
I literally got an email yesterday from Ali Hart. She works with Stockyard Meat and Livestock, and we produced a couple of clips for her the week prior. And she sent me this video of one of our clips playing in Dubai at this, and there's literally buildings in the background, this big open air sort of event, and 3 screens with the clips that we'd made for Stockyard, playing for this enormous audience, in Dubai. I was like, holy smokes, like that's incredible. I think Roald Dahl might have said once, never give up your day job until you've kind of got a book that sold 30,000 copies or something like that. It's a little bit the same with what we do as what Millstream do as a documentary production company. So at the moment we're doing work for various clients, but then on top of that we've got a fairly significant amount of funding to produce a documentary series around marine, about marine parks around Australia. So at this stage, the working title is called Our Blue Heart. We're doing it independently. So when I say that, we haven't partnered with another production company at this stage, and we haven't applied for development funding through Screen Queensland or anything like that. Not to say that I wouldn't like to, but it's just that sometimes you're working on a project and it's time critical, and you just need to get cracking, because otherwise all the development that you've done will no longer be relevant and those stories will fall over. So you just got to get cracking. And we are used to, working on, working on budgets and making it pay regardless. So, sometimes you got to cut the cloth to fit. We always over deliver. So if we do say a $20,000 or $30,000 job, the client will get a $30,000 or $40,000 job. It just goes to show too, like so many people that I meet, and they kind of look at what we do as being impossible. It's far from impossible. It can be done. And if the other thing too is you always got to have an ear for a job. Like no job just lands in your lap. No grant lands in your lap. No idea for a documentary lands in your lap. You have to do a bit of tough graft and make it work, and find the way. Otherwise you're just going to be treading water. Or I see people, and it's like they're waiting for a comet to come along and drop a career in their lap. I mean, I remember my very first proper documentary that I made, and it was a really odd topic. It was called A Shot in the Dark, and it was, before I say that, it was about golf for blind and visually impaired people. Let me take two, golf for blind and visually impaired people. And a lot of people would say, geez, that's going to be that's going to be hard to make interesting, and I was like, wow, this is going to be great. And so one of the first things we did, we found Charlie Earp, who was Greg Norman's first coach. He had an issue with his eyesight. He really wanted to be involved, and then we found another gentleman called Norman von Neider, legend of Australian golf. He was legally blind, had macular degeneration, super keen to be involved. And then I remember Roy and HG were doing a book signing in the Queen Street Mall, and I'm a big Roy and HG fan from back in the day. I'm talking 30 years ago. And I rocked up and basically hit them up at the book signing, about doing, helping me with the voiceover for this doco. And they're like, who have you got? And I said, I've got Charlie Earp. And you go, oh, Charlie, yep, Charlie. And then I said, and I've got Norman von Neider and the Von. You've got the Von, and because he'd won, he was a just legendary Australian golfer of another generation, so that was it. We had him, and it was a great little documentary, and I made money out of it, which is incredible because it was a university assignment. I mean, who would have thought? But that's what I mean. You just, no matter what the idea is, or no matter what the client wants you to do, how do you value add to that to make it the best project it can be and have fun? Because what's the point of doing something if you're not enjoying yourself? I love what I do, and so yeah, that's kind of, that's a story from many years ago. But I still look back and go, wow, that was kind of cool. Yeah,
that was kind of cool. And it's taken you to amazing places, because you're on the set for Narnia, which is just amazing in and of itself. You're acquainted with C.S. Lewis's stepson, and you're a Churchill Fellow. So would you for those things?
I mean, just one other thing about Narnia, it was directed by Michael Apted, Michael Apted, the 7 Up director, Bond film director, Gorillas in the Mist, this incredible filmmaker. And, I got to work on set with him and watch him in action. And I was just absolutely, amazed and blown away by, not just Michael, there was tons of great operators in it. Toby Copping, the key grit. I'm trying to think who Electrics was. That's a good question. It's a long time ago, but, these great filmmakers, and getting to work with them and learn from them and watch how they worked under pressure. And that for me was pretty special. Yeah, it was like, wow, I think, very cool.